Hi, you're watching India Today Global with me, Ishita Mitra, and the big news we're tracking today is about the case statement released by Canada. Now, the Justin Trudeau government has denied linking Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, External Affairs Minister S. Shankar, and National Security Advisor G. Doval to any criminal activities happening within the Canadian territory. Now, the statement says that they do not have any evidence or any linkages to or any awareness of this which links these Indian leaders to any criminal activities within Canada. It further adds that any suggestion contrary to this is both speculative and inaccurate. Now, this is something what we're seeing from Canada is a softening of the country's stance on the Khalistani issue. So joining me now to decode this whole statement and the implications for this on New Delhi and Ottawa's ties is our principal correspondent, Shashank Mattu. So Shashank, how do you see this statement released by Canada?
It's an interesting statement made by the Canadian government, of course, declaiming what a particular report has said in the Globe and Mail. Basically, it had going off a single source, which is something you don't do very much in journalism. It quoted an unnamed national security official within the Canadian establishment who said that, as you were mentioning, that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as well as Foreign Minister S. Shankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval were linked to criminal activities in India. In fact, the official in that piece is quoted as saying that there is no way that Narendra Modi did not know of what Canada says is attempts to silence pro-Khalistani voices within Canada. So that was what the report said, quoting one national security official. And now what you're seeing is the Canadian government coming out very clearly and saying that, look, we do not have any specific allegations against Prime Minister Narendra Modi, External Affairs Minister S. Shankar, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, which therefore shows that the report, which appeared in Canada's Globe and Mail, is substantially incorrect. And again, like I said, they went off of just one unnamed national security official's view of the cases that are going on right now. So it's fairly embarrassing for Globe and Mail, which is generally considered to be a respected Canadian newspaper.
Exactly. But the statement goes ahead and says that on October 14th, because of significant and ongoing threat to public safety, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or the RCMP, and officials took the extraordinary step of making public accusations of serious criminal activity in Canada, which are perpetrated by the agents of the Government of India. Now, even though they're saying that there are no links with regards to Indian Prime Minister S. Shankar or the NSA, they're still saying that agents of Government of India are involved in these activities.
Right. And actually, I thought the interesting thing was that they didn't take back any statements on Amit Shah, because you might recall that there was a conversation that they were linking individuals. They leaked information to the Washington Post, which they said publicly and printed publicly as well, which directly named Home Minister Amit Shah as an official responsible for or in the know of these intelligence activities. Very interestingly, though, it was made clear that they are not withdrawing any allegations against Amit Shah as such, which was an interesting thing to note from, what is said and what is not said as well is sometimes important. But yes, they made extremely clear that you might recall that earlier the Royal Canadian Mounted Police did come up and say that we have specific allegations against the government of India. So making that very clear. And publicly also the Nathalie Drouin, who is the national security advisor to the Canadian government, also came out and admitted that information had been given to the Washington Post implicating certain Indian government officials. So they're standing by their case. But what they're saying more specifically is that no, we're not pinpointing Prime Minister Modi or Minister Jaishankar or NSA Doval, but they're not retracting their allegations against Amit Shah, the Home Minister of India.
Exactly. When earlier these media reports were released, MEA had clearly said and called them as smear campaigns that will damage the bilateral ties between India and Canada. So how do you think right now, what would be the response of New Delhi?
Yeah, well, you've already seen that the Indian government has come out with a pretty strong statement saying that, look, we don't generally comment on media reports that come out in the Canadian media, but they've very clearly said, they in fact even called it a ludicrous statement that was made to a Canadian newspaper by a Canadian government official, and it was very much seen as a smear campaign. That was in fact the exact words. Those were the exact words used by the Indian government in their statement about this whole controversy, and also said that, look, if this continues to happen, if these smear campaigns are used, then it will only further damage India-Canada ties. So this is, of course, following off of what India has said in the past as well, that the Washington Post, which is an American newspaper, was leaked information that represented the Canadian side of the Canadian view of this entire controversy, which then, the Canadians openly came out and publicly said that, yes, we did leak this information to the Washington Post to get our side of the story out there. And India has therefore viewed this constant trickle of information into the public domain by Canadian intelligence agencies, by Western intelligence agencies into the Western media as something of a smear campaign. You're trickle-truthing. You're giving a certain amount of information to them, so it creates a news media cycle, and then you again continue to leak information. Whereas India has, in its view, largely treated this as a clandestine intelligence matter. You don't comment on it publicly. You don't reveal too much information to the public. You deal with it through diplomatic channels. And the Indian view will be that, look, if you are continuously going out and briefing your own media and sort of briefing your own view and briefing against Indian government officials and directly implicating, for example, people like Home Minister Amit Shah, it makes it that much harder for our countries to establish a dialogue with each other and get things done. So I think India will not be amused by this. It has always said that, look, the more you play this out in the media, the more it's going to be difficult for us to deal with this diplomatically, because then it becomes a matter of political reputation. And so India has been very clear that Canada needs to stop what it sees as smear campaigns. But this latest information, of course, with Canadian intelligence officials briefing the Canadian media and saying that, look, we believe Prime Minister Modi is involved, and then the Canadian media deciding to run with that assessment and putting it on their headlines, shows that, unfortunately, this idea of continuing to leak information to the Western media is going to continue, and therefore India is going to continuously still feel that Canada is not really interested in a proper resolution to this conflict in a way that India would also feel comfortable doing. So it remains. It seems that for the foreseeable future, it seems that these ties are going to remain fairly strained.
Exactly. And these statements and this back and forth has been going on for almost a year now. We have seen that earlier Trudeau said they have credible allegations of India's hand in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. But then Trudeau comes out and says that we do not have evidence on that. And this whole incident that happened today. So how do you see Canada, sending all the mixed signals with regards to whole Khalistani row here?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think that was quite interesting for the Canadian Prime Minister. He came out, just to give some context, he spoke at a Canadian Foreign Interference Commission, which happened a little while ago, and a month or so ago, and he basically stated that, look, we, at the time that we went and approached the Indian government about the allegations in around August to September 2023. This is before he made a statement in Canadian Parliament. He basically stated that, look, we did not have firm evidence at that point in time to substantiate allegations. We simply had some allegations. We had credible allegations, but no substantially
some
evidence.
Some intel, basically.
Exactly, right? And then he basically went on to say that we asked the Indian government to cooperate with us. They did not. And then he made that statement in the Canadian media. So that was seen extremely. It was seen to be extremely unprofessional, because, of course, the important thing to remember is that India and Canada have not had an easy relationship on Khalistan. You share intelligence with countries when you believe that there are shared strategic goals between the two countries. For example, India and the United States have for decades cooperated on China. No matter how bad the intelligence relationship, no matter how bad the political relationship got, and it was bad for decades in between.
Exactly.
We still continued cooperation on things like China because we knew that we had the same shared strategic goals. That's when you share information on a sensitive intelligence. So Canada, which is a government, and Justin Trudeau, who's a leader that we have consistently seen as wishy-washy on the issue of Khalistan, sharing information like that when you don't even share perhaps the same view of the Khalistan movement. Canada sees it as a free speech issue. We see it as a national security issue. We see him as too cozy with a lot of pro-Khalistan figures. And therefore, so sharing intelligence then in that context becomes difficult when you don't trust the government, your opposite number, and you don't trust that they will use the intelligence that you give them in a way that is that you are comfortable with or that advances shared strategic goals. Therefore, it was a presumptuous ask from the Canadian government. And then to have gone and then made that statement in public on the basis of what you knew were just allegations and not evidence, showed that, look, this is highly unprofessional. This is a political drama that you are staging. You don't have proof. You have asked us for information, and then within 2 or 3 weeks, you've gone and made a public statement like this. It has just consistently reinforced this narrative in India that, look, we simply cannot trust Justin Trudeau. We simply cannot trust the Canadian government because they don't share the same view of the Khalistan issue that we do. And now this is another problem, right? That this latest allegation that we are seeing coming out from one national, and I'm sorry to harp on this point again, but it is important to know that 101 of journalism is that you don't report something that you have simply heard from one source, right? You always try to get a second source to confirm what has happened. You don't do single source reporting. And so to see something like that and to directly implicate a foreign leader, as well as the foreign minister, as well as the national security advisor, these are, very, very senior figures. And so to run a headline like that on the basis of one unnamed national security official telling you this, it seems extremely irresponsible. And I think from India's perspective, it will only continue to reinforce the fact that Canada's government has very little control over its own intelligence agencies. And I'll close by making this final point, right, which is that there has always been a theory that has been going around that, look, it was the Canadian intelligence agencies that had leaked information. Remember what Justin Trudeau said in his own Foreign Interference Inquiry Commission. He said that, look, the news of this alleged Indian involvement to kill pro-Khalistani figures in Canada was about to hit the Canadian news media. It had obviously been leaked by someone, right? And because to forestall that and to get ahead of the story, we briefed the Canadian people, and Justin Trudeau made that statement in front of the Houses of Parliament in September 2023. So the important point is that someone leaked the information to the Canadian media, and then to stop that, to get ahead of the story, you made that statement, and Justin Trudeau made that statement. Who leaked that information? The dominant theory is that it was the Canadian intelligence agencies that wanted to put pressure on India, wanted to put pressure on the government to act against India, and so they leaked this information. So
I think that's a very important point you raised, actually.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so there's some serious concerns about whether, in fact, Canada's government has a very good hold on its intelligence agencies going out and briefing the media, because now you've had your national security advisor go and admit that, yes, we briefed the Washington Post. You have no control over your own intelligence agencies when they go and are briefing the media about this and then precipitate a diplomatic crisis with the world's biggest democracy. And now again, you have another crisis where your intelligence officials are going rogue and talking to media officials again and saying that, yeah, we think the leader of the world's largest democracy was involved in this case. And then you have to yourself come out and say, actually, that guy's wrong. We don't believe that. We don't have any specific allegations against these people. So it seems like a consistent problem where the Canadian government has very little control about what its intelligence agencies are saying. So it's a huge issue.
Exactly. My last question to you before we let you go is that you were talking about the Foreign Interference Commission and how Trudeau has been under fire because of this. So how much do you think, because over the last 1 year, we have seen a lot of statements coming from Canada's side and not as much from Indian side, and especially from Indian leader Prime Minister Modi. But Trudeau has been on and on about this. So how much do you think all of these statements are basically a distraction from other issues or are catering to a domestic audience?
Right. Look, I think that this is a compelling argument that has been made that at the end of the day, the Canadian Prime Minister could not afford to be made to look weak in front of his own people. Right? He could not afford to look weak because there are already massive domestic problems in Canada at this point in time: immigration, housing prices, the economy is not doing
given that the country is going to go to election next year.
To an election, exactly, right? So it's already not a good narrative for Justin Trudeau. He's widely expected to lose the elections in 2025. So yes, you're right. There is a looming election as well. And so there was this broad idea that, look, Justin Trudeau is someone who is desperate for another narrative to distract Canadians. You may even call that a matter of speculation. But I think what in his own words is absolutely true, and I want to stress this point again, what he has admitted in his own words is that, look, the news was going to get out that we had some suspicions about India's involvement in these killings on Canadian soil, but we did not have proof. And the only reason for us going out and making this public statement and maligning the world's biggest democracy was because we were afraid that it was going to hit the news before we made a statement. And that if that had hit the news media and Justin Trudeau had not made a statement beforehand, he would have looked extremely weak. He would have looked like he was asleep at the wheel, and it would have only have compounded his domestic problems in Canada. He would have looked weak on national security, looked weak on foreign interference when he was already being made to look weak because of housing, because of the economy, because of inflation, because of Chinese foreign interference in Canadian politics. So you don't have to believe even outlandish theories about conspiracy theories and vote bank politics just to say that Justin Trudeau, in his own words, has admitted that he had a strong political incentive to come out and make the statement against India despite not having real proof. So I think that you don't have to buy into any conspiracy theory. You have to just take him at his own word.
Yeah.
So I think that it is something that is unprecedented in my career, having covered this, or going back really over the last couple of decades to see something like this playing out. And the unfortunate casualty is the India-Canada bilateral relationship.
Exactly, just because of optics, going out and making such a big statement against an ally, and not just any country, an ally that is with you, that is a part of your shared alliances, and then going out making a statement without any shred of evidence, it is a big deal. And now Canada, of course, softening its stance. So thank you, Shashank, for helping us put this story into perspective.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, viewers, for watching this live. Stay tuned to India Today Global, where we simplify geopolitics for you.